So let me quickly introduce myself to you if you don't know who I am. My name is Matt Thompson. I've been tutoring online now for about 6 years and I love it. It's fantastic. I started teaching English as a foreign language over 10 years ago here in Bristol in the UK. And I taught in various language schools before deciding to set up my own online tutoring business about 6 years ago. So that's what I do. I teach people all over the world, exclusively online now. And a couple of years ago, I decided to share my experience and my knowledge of tutoring online. And that's why I set up the Smart Online Tutoring blog, which some of you might have already heard of or currently read. And it's an area where you can find out about everything online tutoring related in terms of the tools that I use, my experience of online tutoring, and different ways that you too can benefit from tutoring online. So that's Smart Online Tutoring, that's my blog that I've set up. And recently I discovered BitPaper, which is why I'm here today. And one of the people who is very familiar with BitPaper is my co-host Bianca. So I'm just going to introduce Bianca to you now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about who she is and what she does.
So I'm Bianca. I have different positions. I work as a lecturer. I work as an online tutor in psychology, research methods, statistics, SPSS, and I currently work as well for BitPaper in promotion and in training. So I'm closely working together with the team. I know a little bit about the future development as well, and I've experienced over the past 1.5 years now working with BitPaper for online tuition, and yeah, I'm really excited to be able to promote it here, and really excited to see how this is growing and how we can create a great online tuition community, really, to be able to use great Whiteboard to enable better learning resources and experiences. So it's really great. Passing on back to you, Matt.
Okay, all right, it's great to have you here on board with us. So what I'm going to do now is actually share my screen with you, and so you can see exactly what I see, and then we'll go through the presentation together. Okay, so just in the chat box, if you can let me know just by a quick yes or a Y, can you see my screen clearly? Just let me know if you can see the slide presentation. Okay, lots of yeses and Ys, wonderful. And hopefully you can still hear and hear me clearly. Yep, okay, everyone's saying yes. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get straight on with the question that I asked at the beginning of the webinar, which was, have you used BitPaper before? So let's have a quick look at the poll, see how that's looking. So it seems that 60% of people know, 10% say one yes, but it's still new for me, and 30% say yes, I use it regularly. Okay, so we've got a real mixture of people on board here who've got a range of experience with BitPaper. So today, what are we going to learn in the session? Well, I'm going to share with you how to prepare a lesson with BitPaper. So for those of you who are completely new to BitPaper, I'm going to walk you quickly, step by step, as to how you can get set up. It's very quick and easy. I'll also share with you some features that I do and don't use, and also share with you some upcoming features. I've had a chat with the team at BitPaper, and they've got some exciting new features that I'm going to share with you as well. Also some BitPaper tips that we have that I've experienced during my time using BitPaper. Also, I'll share with you how other tutors are using BitPaper to tutor online. I've got some examples of other BitPapers that tutors in a range of different subjects have used in the past, and show you how they're currently using it to give you an idea of the different ways it can be used for different subjects. And also, I'll share a little bit about how you can tutor online with Zoom and BitPaper. If you're not familiar with Zoom, it's an excellent app similar to Skype, but hopefully you're all aware of that. But if not, I'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the session. And at the end, we'll also have a Q&A session where you can ask your questions. Again, just a reminder to write them in the question box below the video if you have any questions. I'll keep an eye out for those, and we'll answer those at the end. Okay, so hopefully you're all on board still and you can hear and see the screen clearly. And we'll get cracking with the 5 steps to preparing a BitPaper lesson. So the 5 simple steps that I'm going to quickly walk you through are: 1, naming your paper; 2, saving your paper to My Papers folder. This is really important because this will make sure that you don't lose any papers or lessons that you create. I'll quickly show you how to add some content and show you a really cool tool that BitPaper uses to enable you to do that really quickly. Also, how to make a copy. This is a handy feature if you want to keep an original. I'll tell you a little bit more about why that's a good idea. And also how to share the URL of the BitPaper with your student. BitPaper works by each BitPaper having its unique URL that you can easily share with your students so they can access it as well. Okay, so just a quick look at the chat and make sure everything is okay. Hi, we've got a new person in Cam, I think it is, tutoring English from KS2. Welcome on board. Okay, great to have you here. So let's have a look at the first step 1. Important note, just to make sure you're aware, you should use BitPaper in Google Chrome or a Firefox browser. Okay, it doesn't work so well in other browsers like Safari, so important that you use one of those. So first thing, open up your browser. I'm using Google Chrome, and you then need to name your paper. So let's have a quick look at that together. So let's call it something like Best Online Whiteboard. And then you click the Create Paper. By the way, I recommend that you actually sign up for BitPaper. It's free. You can sign up in less than a minute, and it'll give you access to all of the features that are available. Once you've signed up, you'll then be able to just create a paper like I have just then. So as you can see, there's a nice big whiteboard with some tools at the bottom here and some other tools on the left and right, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about those in a second. But that's the very first step. Super easy, right? You've created your paper, you've named it, and now it's time to save your paper to My Papers. Why am I saving straight away? Well, the reason being is that you don't want to lose your paper. So the first thing you want to do is save it. And if you have a look over here in the bottom right hand corner, by the way, if you can't see anything that I'm writing, you can just close the chat box. This might help you to see the full screen if the chat is hiding anything, but I'm looking down here at the moment. So there's a little save button that you can click. This will open up the save folder, and you can simply click save. You'll see there at the top it says success. Best Online Whiteboard is saved in My Papers. You're now sure that you're not going to lose that paper, and that will be in your My Papers. By the way, if you're wondering about My Papers, to access it, you can just have a look down here. Click these 3 lines. At the top in red, it says My Papers, and you can clearly see all of your papers saved. Here you can see Best Online Whiteboard, that's the one I just created. That's now saved in My Papers. Okay, so we've done saving the paper. Let's now move on to step 3, which is adding content with the snipping tool. The snipping tool is very, very handy. I'm using a Mac computer. So in order to use the snipping tool, which is kind of like a screen grabbing or screenshot tool, I can just click Command, Shift, and 4, and then take a snapshot of an image. I can then directly add that to the BitPaper. Let me show you that in action so you know what I'm talking about. Let's say I wanted to take a copy of this picture here that I found. I wanted to do a lesson on the periodic table of elements, for example. Not my speciality, by the way, but just an example. So you see I've clicked it here, and I can now drag across and take a picture like that. You might have heard the camera. That means that I've now taken the picture, and I can now come back to my BitPaper over here, and I can either paste or drag this picture directly into the BitPaper and drop it in here. So at this moment, I can move this image around. I can make it larger or smaller. Quick tip, by the way, if you don't want to squash the image like this or like this, if you hold down the Shift button whilst you're dragging it, it will give it equal proportions when you're making it larger or smaller. So I'll move it around, and when I'm happy with where it is, I can double tap, and the image is now on my BitPaper. So that's a very quick and easy way that you can add images to your BitPaper. That's me using a Mac computer. If you're using a PC, there's a slightly different version. Let me just hand over to Bianca, who uses Windows. Why don't you tell us how you would add a picture using your snipping tool for a PC?
So in a normal Windows computer, you have several options to do that, but the easiest one that online educators have found just most efficient is a program. I'm going to write that in the chat. It's called Slideshot, and you can download it, install that, and it runs in print. And what it does is it replaces the print screen button that we see on the right-hand side on our keyboard with a button that when you press it, it will be able to select an area similarly to the one that Matt just showed. And then you can instantly just Control-C and then Control-V, paste it back onto the board. That's the easiest version. There are other ones that you can Google if you find that that one is problematic for you. But people have found that the easiest one, because the inbuilt one for Windows computers, it seemed to have several steps, and it doesn't seem to be that efficient over time. It just takes over time quite a lot if you copy paste a lot of images. Handing back over to you, Matt.
Okay, so by the way, if you are not sure of any of those things that we've mentioned about how to copy and paste and how to take snippets, you can find a nice little user guide here, which you can click on, and that will give you some useful tips. One of them here is using the snipping tool, and you can find all that information within your BitPaper. So the Mac here, Shift Control Command and 4 to take the screenshot, or as Bianca was mentioning in Windows, you can use Shift Windows key and S and then take your snapshot that way, or download the various options that you have there. What was the one you said? Lightshot. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. That's a super quick and easy way for you to copy and paste images using the snipping tool. Once you've got this within your BitPaper, you can access some of the tools at the bottom. I noticed that some of you are saying you can't see the tools. Maybe that's just because it's not showing on my screen share. But at the bottom, there are various tools like pen tools. I won't go into too many details because they're really straightforward. But ultimately, you can write on the board like this. You can maybe delete some things. By the way, if you want to make anything bigger or smaller, like the eraser, you can do so. And then maybe I might want to delete a couple of these, add a shape maybe, like this here. If I wanted the student to tell me what number 2 on the table is, draw lines like this, for example. Maybe add some text. So, by the way, when you add the text, you can then move it to the position you want it to be in, double tap, and then you're kind of creating your BitPaper as you go. You can draw straight lines just by using this ruler tool here. This is really good for things like graphs, particularly if you're using BitPaper for maths, etc. But there are other features that you can use, other tools there, but those are the main ones that I tend to use most. Okay, so that's adding images to BitPaper. Step 3, adding your content. I'll be sharing a little bit more about some other example lessons in a minute, but for now, let's quickly move on to step 4, making a copy. So once you've created your lesson, maybe you have even added some more slides. You can do that by clicking this button here in the top right-hand corner. this will add more boards. You can add as many as you like and jump between them like this. So once you've created multiple boards, or even just one board if you want to, I recommend making a copy. So if we come back down over here where we saved the BitPaper before, click the Save button, you'll notice it says this paper is already auto-saving in My Papers. This is a great new feature that recently was added. It means that, let's say you accidentally close your BitPaper halfway through, don't worry, it won't lose any information as long as you've already saved it to My Papers. So it's constantly auto-saving. But if you want to make a copy, just click in this option here, Create Copy. Give your copy a name. So Best Online Whiteboard Copy. Hit Create Copy. And this will create a copy. It says here, you can see success, BOW copy saved in My Papers. So once again, if you need to find My Papers, you can do so on the left-hand side, and you should see quite clearly that the copy is now here. Why is this good? Well, I've heard of tutors who really like to share the paper with their students before the lesson. This is a great idea, maybe if you want the student to do some pre-reading or some activity before the lesson. The problem is the student has access to the actual material, so they might delete it, move it around, change it, do all sorts to it. So good to have an original copy that you can revert back to. You can share the BitPaper at any time, but you might want to consider either sharing it during the lesson, at the beginning, or even at the end. Also, another good reason to copy is so that you've got an original. Maybe you might want to teach the same lesson to multiple students. So good to have an original that you can go back to and replicate that lesson. I know some tutors that have used BitPapers again and again and again and got a lot of use out of their preparation time. So that's why you should certainly consider copying your BitPaper straight away. Excuse me. Okay, by the way, any questions? I know I'm going quite quickly, but I'm aware that some people are already familiar with BitPaper. So those are the main steps there. Let's quickly look at the fifth and final step, which is sharing BitPaper URL to give your student access. I mentioned that just now. You can do that over here. Click the button and you'll see this URL here. It's a unique URL, and you can simply select this whole URL, click Command or Control C to copy it, and then you can paste that in an email or in a Zoom chat or Skype chat or whatever to share it with your student. By the way, this isn't a permanent URL. So if you want to allocate one board per student, if you've got multiple students using BitPaper, this is a great way of doing it. And you can maybe name each of your permanent URL boards for each student. I know some people like to do that to organize their BitPaper. Di saying, when Matt says over here, I can't see what I'm doing. Same with me, Sarah. Okay. Sorry about that. What I'm going to do is see if I can make this a little bit smaller so you can actually see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. Is that better? Can you now see the tools that I'm referring to? Yes, it is better. Okay, good. Let me just quickly share with you some of the tools I was mentioning. URL sharing is over here. So if you want to share a URL, you can do so here. If you want, all of the tools that I was mentioning are here, such as your pen tool, eraser tool, shape tool, and text tool. These are all here. And all of the tools that you want to use for adding images and saving are over here. Okay, I hope that's now clear. In the top right hand corner, we can see if you need to add another board, you can do so like that. Those are the main ones that I've mentioned so far. Guy says that is better. Okay, sorry about that. I was sharing my full screen and you weren't able to see all the tools that I was talking about. But like I said, it's very straightforward, very easy to use, and I would certainly recommend just having a play around with it. You'll pick it up in no time. That's what I love about BitPaper. Okay, moving on to a feature that I use when I'm using BitPaper to teach. These are called hotkeys. If you are already using BitPaper, just let me know in the chat box if you use hotkeys. If you know what I'm talking about, just say yes, I am. If you haven't got a clue, let me share with you what hotkeys are. They are keys that you can press on your keyboard, which helps you to navigate around BitPaper really quickly. So for example, if you want to quickly jump to your pen tool, rather than doing this and scrolling down going, oh, which one is it? Is it this ruler one? Is it this pen one? I can't remember. Okay, one of the hotkeys that you can use is the number 1 on your keyboard. The number 1 will take you like this, number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So simply by pressing the numbers, I can quickly jump to any tool or feature I want to find very quickly. Di says, I don't like them, prefer to use the tools. Okay, that's fine, no problem at all. If you don't like them, you can manually scroll over as you get used to the tools, that's fine. But other people find that it's a really quick way to navigate around the BitPaper. Let me share a couple more. Let's say if you wanted to make a new board, you could just click Shift and N, or scroll between the boards. You can just use these arrow keys. Up to you, really. I find them useful. Others might prefer to use just scrolling. But either way, the important thing is to be very familiar with the tool so that you're not fumbling around looking for how to make your pen a bit bigger or how to find the eraser. Bianca's going to share in the chat box some of the most useful ones that she uses. That's great. Thanks, Bianca. Let me share with you now how to add value to your lessons. One of the things that I love about BitPaper is it's not just a whiteboard that you draw on. There are some other nice features such as saving your lesson as a PDF. So let's say, for example, you've created a multiple board lesson with your BitPaper. And if you use this PDF function here, your student can actually save and print any part of their online lesson. This is a great feature if they want to, let's say, revise offline. So let me show you where that is on the BitPaper here. So if I want to quickly jump from one tool to another, remember I can use my hotkeys, or I can tab on over here. So it's here, BitPaper, PDF signal. If I click this one here, it will give me the option to export as PDF. Now you'll see there's an option here to either select all boards, or you can even select individual boards. Let's say you only wanted to create a PDF of the first 2 boards, you can do that, or you can select them all. One thing to note here is that it will only create the PDF of the viewable area of each board. That means, let me just show you what that means. So for example, you can move the BitPaper board around, by the way. It keeps going on and on. So let's say I had the board like this, and I've written something else along here. If I then saved as a PDF, it would only save the viewable page. So I'd kind of cut off half of the element table there and just have the scribble down below. So just be aware of that. So it's a great feature if you have used the BitPaper to create individual boards within one viewing area, and you can then just click print like that. What that will do is download a copy of all of your slides as a nice PDF file. You can see it's downloaded over there in the corner, and I'll then be able to open that up and either email that or share that with the student as a PDF version. I think this is a really neat feature. It adds value to your lesson and enables you to offer offline revision of any of your materials. Obviously, the student can still access the BitPaper after the lesson at any time because they've got this URL that they can access. Okay, so those are the 5 steps plus some of the other features I like to use. Okay, let me share with you a feature I don't currently use. However, some people do. It's the video or audio call feature. Yes, BitPaper has an inbuilt video and audio call feature, just like Zoom or Skype, which is brilliant. The reason I don't use it is because I currently use Zoom, which is a fantastic app for creating really stable online calls. Let me know in the chat box if you use Zoom already. Just say yes or Y or Zoom rocks, something like that. Yes, I can see Alexis, Louise, yes, yes, yes. Some no. Okay, just started. I would strongly recommend getting hold of a Zoom account. It's free. It's better than Skype. It's more stable. I use Zoom because I have a lot of international students. So if you teach students around the world, this is great. It's more stable than Skype, and it allows you to share your screens in other ways that Skype doesn't. I'm a big fan of it. However, I have tested out the video and audio call feature for BitPaper, and it works perfectly well in the UK. So if both people have a strong internet connection, you can have an all-in-one feature where you've got your BitPaper and you've got your video call feature within the same app. So if people don't like to jump between Zoom and BitPaper, you could use this feature. I currently find that the stability of Zoom is better at the moment than the BitPaper one, but I know that's something that they're working on for the future. Okay, so by the way, if you aren't sure how to start a video call, you can simply see it over here, this one. You click there, it will give you the option to join a call or join with a video. And then if your student has already clicked on the BitPaper link, they'll be able to see you on a video call. Okay, so let me share with you now a couple of BitPaper tips. We've already talked about number one, which is saving BitPapers. It does autosave once you've saved it to My Papers, but I recommend just as soon as you've created it, saving it to My Papers so you don't forget. I've also shared with you a little bit about copying shared BitPapers. Great to give your student access either before or after or during the lesson, but just be aware that they can edit that as well. You can encourage a student to make a copy of their BitPaper that you share with them if you like. That will then save to their My Papers folder, and that will be a great option for them to be able to use their own version of the BitPaper you've shared with them. But I always think it's a good idea to make a copy just in case. The third one, adding large images. I found that if you want to add images to your BitPaper mid-lesson, it can be a bit problematic if you're trying to upload a really large file, like a photograph, for example. So what I would recommend is if you want to add large images, add them beforehand. So once you've added an image to your BitPaper board, you'll see over here in the top left-hand corner, it will show you the images that you've already added or that you've already uploaded to the BitPaper. You can then just grab these and drop them onto the paper very easily and quickly during the lesson if you need to, or before if you're preparing the lesson in advance. So that's just something to bear in mind. Upload large files before the lesson begins. That would be a top tip from me. Another one is adding text during a lesson. Okay, let me show you what I mean by adding text during the lesson. You remember the tool at the bottom here? Let's just make a nice clean page so we can see exactly what we're doing. Okay, so remember this tool at the bottom I shared with you here? This is the text adding tool. I'm sharing my screen with you now, so you can all see this. And I can add text here. You can see what I'm adding. However, if you're not doing a screen share like I'm doing, or if you're doing a screen share on Zoom, if you're just sharing the BitPaper, then the student will not be able to see what you're writing until you click Add and double tap for it to go onto the BitPaper like this. So just be aware of that. If you're doing a long writing activity, so let's say, for example, you're asking the student to click on the text, do lots of writing, you won't be able to see what they're writing until they click Add and then paste to the board. So screen sharing is obviously no problem, but just bear that in mind, that it's one of those features that is not visible until you add it. However, lots of people do writing with the pen tool. So if I'm writing on the board, you can see this is instant. The student will be able to see instantly what you're writing with any pen tool, and you will be able to see what they're writing. It's very real time, which is a fantastic feature. So just bear in mind that. Susie's saying worthwhile talking to our developer about it. Yes, I know that's an upcoming idea and tool that they'd like to have for the future. So we'll have a chat with them about that. Okay. And finally, using a pen tablet. You might have noticed that I'm writing a little bit like a 5-year-old at the moment. That's because I'm just using my trackpad. But I know a lot of people are using pen tablets. Let me just share with you the one that I've recently invested in. It's this one. It's called a Huon, and it's the budget entry-level pen tablet. Comes with a pen, and it's pretty small. If I hold up my hand, you'll get an idea here about the size of it. But it's a really useful tool for using on BitPaper. It takes a little while to get used to, but once you do, you can be writing like a pro in no time. This is the budget entry-level pad. It costs about £20. Thanks, Bianca. You can pick that up for about £20 on Amazon. Bianca, have you got your pad that you use there in front of you? You have? Okay, perfect. So Bianca's using a Wacom. Can you just show us how big it is by holding your hand up to it? Let me make that full screen so everyone can see this. It's not a very clear image, but you get the idea. It's a bit bigger, and it's a bit more expensive. It's about £50, but it's better quality. So up to you really, but I would strongly recommend getting hold of a pen tablet if you're going to be using BitPaper or tutoring online using an online whiteboard. Why don't you let me know in the chat box which one you are using, if you have one. I can see Nikem, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. You have the Huon 420 too. Yeah, cheap and cheerful. I agree. Sarah, you're using a Wacom. Karen's on a Wacom. Marie's on the Huon. Okay, so it seems like a lot of you are already familiar with these two options. Wacom or Surface. Yeah, Denise. So definitely a good tool to have. Yeah, good point, Bianca. She says in specific subject areas is also worthwhile for your student to get one if they're collaborating a lot. Yeah, an iPad Pro will also do the trick. So yeah, encourage your student. I mean, it's a £20 investment, not a huge amount, but it will make a big difference to your quality of writing and tutoring, and also the interactive features on BitPaper. Okay, so I think that's all of my tips. Yes, I've covered all of my tips. Is there anything else that you would like to add in the chat box? Bianca or Susie, any tips that you use that you're familiar with? Or even students, if your students that they use, or as tutors, those who are already familiar with BitPaper, share in the chat box if you have anything you want to add to those tips. It's always good to share. Bianca, did you want to say something?
Just add something. I do not use a MacBook. I have a Windows computer, but I know from tutors that use MacBooks. Apple has this feature that if you send a text over an iPhone, that it comes up on the Mac computer as well.
Hold on a second, Bianca. We can't
Can
hear
you hear me now
very
better?
well.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Apologies.
Yeah,
so I am using a Windows computer, but I know from other tutors who work with Macs and Apple products, they know that if you're sending with your students maybe texts, images from a written task or a graphic that they have done on a paper, what they can do is they can send this to you and it comes up on the Mac computer, and then you can drag and drop it right onto the board. So I know several tutors who use this function, and they might be quite useful if you're just working through homework from the student, especially in humanities as well, where you would write a lot and then maybe you can just take a picture of it, send it to let the student send it to you, and then you can drag it onto the board and be able to actually really evaluate it on the board with them. Yeah.
There are lots of other useful ideas and tips that others have, but what I wanted to quickly share with you next is some examples of how I've used BitPaper and how other tutors have used BitPaper as well. So let's have a look at the first one here, an example of one of my BitPapers. This is just a screen grab, and this is when I was tutoring IELTS. You can see I've got here a table that I've annotated. This is a copy of the student writing that she just sent to me, and annotating and correcting as we go. And then I've added some text here to mention the key points that we discussed during the paper revision, and checking to make sure that she's answering the question clearly. Here's another example of my teaching. Again, very good for correcting homework, and just clearly annotating what it is that you want them to do based on the question, highlighting keywords, etc. Okay, that's me and IELTS. Let's have a look at some other tutors using BitPaper. This one here, you can see very simply using the triangle tool to introduce some maths concepts here, and then writing over the top with their pen tablet. Another example here, you can just snippet graph paper like this. Let's say you wanted to share about quadrants, and then draw over the top. You can always draw over the top of any image that you add to the board. I believe this is one of Bianca's. Would you like to just share a little bit about what you did here with this?
Yes, so that is an example of a software which I use for statistical research. And I basically, you can see I use the Snipping tool. So I have this software on my computer, which is often just another advantage for online tuition, regardless of BitPaper. Just online tuition, sometimes if you have face-to-face tuition and you work on a computer program, it might be a little bit awkward if we work on one computer and then we kind of need to move from one person to the other, and we both need to look at one screen. So sometimes for online tuition, this is also great just to be able to look at one screen each by themselves. So what I've done, I've taken a snapshot, put it in, and then annotate basically what the variables are, what that means. So as simple as that. If you go to the next one, Matt, I can maybe outline the next example on the next slide. Yeah, here, so again, copy pasted an image and then annotate what kind of example we can give as we go along, explaining that with the student, what examples we can relate to each of those organ structures, for example. If you go to the next, and this one here, for example, with the cortisol one, I have used text boxes. But if you just go back onto the previous one. Yeah, so there I've used text boxes to be able to just create sections where the student can add the text by themselves. So I have created lines using the pen, using 1 and shift. So selecting 1 on the keyboard, so you get the pen, and then shift and draw. You can draw a straight line. Then you can select either 6 or the actual 5, which is the square sign, which is one of the tools. You can draw them to create a little section where you indicate for the student where to add any text. And the student basically collaborated on that, or a remote control function on Zoom, which I wanted to explain at the very end, something that you can use in collaboration, obviously as a complementary way to use BitPaper. So they have taken control over my computer to be able to add on the actual words. So that is a great way how we can use images to be able to assess their knowledge. So if we, just as another tip, we can use the rubber function maybe you could also go through that if you're on BitPaper itself again, and you could just include any image. So maybe if you go to any image before, yeah. So if you just take the rubber, if you just select the rubber and that's equivalent to the number 3, we can maybe rub something out of those sections and let the student then add in, okay, what is the actual equivalent for that? What's the abbreviation for iron, for example? And then that's a great way how we can assess students' knowledge, not only for ask by explanation, but as well for feedback, kind of. Great. If we go further onto the slides, onto the next one, Matt, which comes after the cortisol example. Yeah, so here again, that is just an output of a statistic analysis at higher education. And I've taken, again, a snapshot, pasted it in, used different color themes that we can use here. For example, you can see blue and red, where we can try to indicate, I mean, in this case, it doesn't really make much sense, but we could indicate what type of directions we're talking about, if we're talking about correlation. Again, on the right-hand side, I've used the pen with the shift and drawing to be able to get the actual lines to indicate what those types of associations mean. So that was, again, created during the lessons. And that's from my side, Matt, so I'm just passing on back to you.
Description of how you're using BitPaper. So let me just quickly run through a couple of other examples and we can see how other tutors use it. So yeah, again, very simple use of straight lines here and writing over the top. You can upload PDFs. As I mentioned here, this looks like chapter 1 of asset classes. So you can upload multiple pages to your BitPaper, but you will have to then drag and drop each page individually onto each separate board. So that's just a little tip for you at the moment. It won't upload the entire multiple page PDF yet. I know that's something that they're looking at for the future, but you'll then drag each one individually. But you know, maybe you don't want to upload an entire course book, you just want to select a few of the pages, then you could do that. Here's another example of a snippet by the looks of things combined with text over the top. And then this at the bottom looks like some text that has been added using the text tool. Answering exam questions or going through exam questions, I think, is a common usage of BitPaper amongst tutors for a variety of subjects. Here's a good example of one here. And another one here. You can get really into the detail of each question, you know, working out the actual, how you answer the question itself, you know, focusing on things like underlining keywords, all sorts. You can get really quite detailed, or you can keep it simple. Here's another example of someone just using a simple graph, a couple of straight lines, the pen tool here, and adding a bit of text onto the graph. You can see you can use different colors as well to highlight specific areas if you want to. Here's an example of getting really into depth with the pen tool. Some nice little doodling over here. I know some tutors that actively encourage their students to doodle on BitPapers. I guess that depends on the age of your students that you're tutoring. But yeah, you can do a whole range of activities with them if you want to. I know in one of my emails I sent out, I mentioned about the potato and the sugar solution. Well, here you go. Here's the answer. If you have your biology class with your students, this takes me back to my days at school, and you can share with them what happens to your piece of potato in a concentrated sugar solution according to this one here. You've highlighted the answer here, so it loses more water than it gained. Okay, and finally, this is one of my favorite examples of a tutor who is using BitPaper in a different way with much younger learners. And she says on her Facebook page, Adventures in Spanish, halfway through a superheroes unit with my young online Spanish students, we looked at the verb ser, to be, talked about different superpadres, watched videos, played Bien El Capitan, and designed our very own superheroes. And there you can see a picture of one of the students' drawings, which I think is fabulous. So yeah, really good for younger learners as well as older learners, and they can really get interactive, and it can hold their attention for a long time. They love the colors as well. According to one of the tutors I know who tutors very young learners, a variety of different bright colors really holds their attention. Okay, so that's how other tutors are using BitPaper. Now I wanted to quickly share with you some exciting new features that are coming soon to BitPaper. This is what I love about BitPaper and the team. You share with them what you like, you share with them what you would like added, and they are constantly updating it and looking to improve the app as it goes. Here's a quick video of a tool that I'm particularly excited about, which is the Select, Drag, and Edit tool for images and text. Why am I excited about this? Well, if I just come back to my BitPaper I showed you before, I've added this image here, this periodic table of elements. But once it's added to the paper, that's it. I can't move it around, I can't edit it or make it bigger or smaller. I can only create another page, for example, add it again this way. And at this moment here, you can move it and resize it, reposition it, whatever. But as soon as you double tap, that's it, it's done. This new feature, which I'll show you a quick video of, actually resolves that issue. And it's going to allow you to do something like this. Hope you can all see the video clearly. So you can write with your pen tool, then you can select different areas of what you've written, move it around, resize it, even spin it around like this. Click the undo tool to go back. For me, this is going to be really nice, a really handy feature for the future. So watch out for that one coming soon. Hopefully that will also include being able to edit and drag images as well as text. A couple of other features that I know are up and coming. For example, rearranging boards. What does that mean? Well, if you have a look over here, at the moment you've got your boards on the right, but let's say I wanted to put this part of the lesson here, board 5, in front of board 4. I can't do that at the moment, but you will be able to reorder these. So I'm going to put slide 5 on in front of slide 2, a little bit like you would be able to reorder slides on a PowerPoint presentation. That's coming soon. Folders for My Papers. So if I go to My Papers, remember we can access it over here. At the moment, all of the papers just go into one big pile. I like to keep organized, and I'm really looking forward to being able to create folders within My Papers, and then I can add all the different students to keep everything organized in different folders like you would on your computer. Multi-page PDF import. I told you a little bit about the fact you have to do it one page at a time. Soon you'll be able to import a whole load of them. Screen sharing and recording lessons. So even implementing some of the more advanced features that I currently use on Zoom are on BitPaper's development for the future. So this is really exciting, and I think that getting into BitPaper right now, it's a great tool as it stands, but it's set to get even better. So those are just a couple of the BitPaper features. There are more, so watch out and watch this space for the updates. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of my presentation now, the slides. I just wanted to make you aware of a free course that I've created to help you tutor online. It's called How to Tutor Online Using Zoom. It's basically a 7-lesson video course that you can enroll in for free, and it will show you step by step how you can use Zoom. I've mentioned Zoom already in the call. It's a great app. And I can show you how to use it. You can enroll on this course by signing up at the bottom of the video. Let me just bring myself back in here. If you have a look over here where it says offers, and you'll see there a brief description of the course. There's the video lessons that are included. If you click enroll in course for free, you can sign up to that now and work your way through the course. It's quite short, but it will definitely help you get used to using Zoom if you haven't used it before, or maybe introduce to you some features that you're not already aware of. This is something that I encourage you to use Zoom and BitPaper together. If you want to get the most out of these two apps, then go ahead and enroll for that course now. So that is all from me in terms of the presentation. I hope that's been helpful so far. I can see that there are some questions now in the chat box. So we'll have a look together at the chat, and let's see if we can answer those questions together. So first of all, I can see Denise is asking, how do we assign a specific URL for a student? For example, a recurring tutoring session with a student. Bianca, do you want to answer that one?
So Denise, as Matt has showed you the URL that you can share with your students, there is so that there are two ways how you can share. You can basically just go to the actual URL, just copy it. Once the paper is saved, it is this URL that keeps stable. If you share that with your student will be always having this link, would be able to go onto that. You can create, what I generally find more useful is having individual lesson PDFs per session. Matt, maybe you could create share screen for the others to see exactly. So I hope the others will be able to see that. So on this share screen, this is where Matt got onto the left-hand side, onto the toolbar, to be able to just see what is the URL. But equivalently, we could just go onto the top where the URL is, where we would type in anything in Google. And if we save the board and then go back to the actual URL, this URL keeps stable. So if we give this, or there are two ways how we can collaborate with students on the board. One way is we have, and Matt has mentioned Zoom, and on his course he will obviously explain a little bit more about Zoom. But in Zoom there is the option to share screen and to be able to give remote control. Giving remote control, you can give your student the ability to work on your BitPapers on your computer. That is one option. It really depends on what type of subject area you work with, and it really depends what type of student you work with. If they need to collaborate a lot and maybe also instantly, then maybe collaborating by actually sharing the URL with them would be much more beneficial. Whereas if you explain more, create, and maybe you have the dominant part in the actual tuition session, and they will basically just add on little elements and maybe some of the answers, you can give them remote control. And this is a better kind of way of controlling how much they get involved and how much they can change on the board. This is what Matt mentioned before, where you kind of do not want to give them the material beforehand because they can change things as well. So to be able to actually use the URL again and again and again, that we have some of the limit of different boards that we can create for one lesson plan. But these are around 40 or 50 images boards, and you can, I think the plan is as well to be able to increase them. But honestly, within a 2-hour session, it is better to keep them all based on the sessions itself. So you can just create a new picture, a new image again, a new URL by creating a new board. So just go on bitpaper.io again, create a new board, and then save that as lesson number 2. I would save them always according to what the subject is that I'm teaching in the lesson and what type of student that is. So I would save it as, I don't know, maybe Richard _ lesson 2, or exactly lesson 2 for John, or what topic you're teaching. Create a paper, and then you have different URLs and different PDFs that you can then download to be able to give them kind of their work. Great. Then to be able to answer the second question from Helen. So would FaceTime work for video calls? FaceTime, you can use FaceTime for the communication, but if you want to use BitPaper as a whiteboard, again, you would want to share the URL with them to be able to collaborate on them, because you do not have any other sharing screen options. So Zoom or Skype. So Skype has also the ability to share screen, but it is limited in a way that we can't give remote control access, and we can also not record sessions, whereas Zoom has those abilities. And we also have an annotating board, which is not as good as BitPaper, but it has sometimes some of the functions that might be useful if you want to indicate something on a different share screen program that you're having, such as, in my case, for example, a statistical software or a PowerPoint presentation. If you want to highlight something and kind of keep it, you can use the Zoom feature for that, and Matt will explain that much better in his course. Then, to be able to answer Alex's question, can a student download a worksheet from their end and attach it as a PDF file too? So yes, they can do that only if they have the URL. But if they do have the URL, they will be able to just drag and drop. If you could just signpost to that area on the right-hand side, basically on the import an image. If you go to the right, on the very first image on the right-hand side on the toolbar, we have the function to be able to import any kind of document. If we hover over it, it says import image, but it allows to import any kind of file. It can be a PDF file, it can be a PowerPoint presentation file, it can be a Word document file. I think it is limited to some of them. But again, Word document you can create as safe as PDF, and then you can upload it. So they are able to do that from their end if they have access to the actual board. So having access to the board is equivalent to you having access to the board. So every can be unloaded from their end as well. The easiest way, however, I have found, and just talking as well from experience from other tutors and different kinds of areas, Snappy tool is much better if we want to import just certain types of images. If you, or sections, basically. If you want to import a whole paper, as Matt already explained, if you have a big document, it might take a while. So just actually open this document up on it as a PDF on your computer, and then snapshotting it and putting it onto the board. It's much more efficient. So I guess that answers the question, and I've been talking about it a little bit more. Are there any plans to include a scientific calculator or compass or tools? Karen, honestly, I have no idea. Maybe Susie could comment that in the chat option if she has any idea about that. But we are, so if you have any ideas around what might be useful, you can always pass these onto me, onto my email. I'm just putting that into the chat box, which is bianca@bitpaper.io. If you have any issues or any ideas, you can email them to me, and I can pass them on to the development team, and they can think about any ideas how they can make this product even more better than it is. Susie hasn't seen the question, so the question is if there are any plans for putting up a scientific calculator, or I'm not sure what else was there. Kind of tools that with protractor tool, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but any kind of tools to be able to enhance the functions, any of the functions of BitPaper. So I'm not sure whether Susie knows, but we will keep you posted. If there are new, if there are new ideas, they will be coming up on BitPaper as well within a little short video introduction to showcase you what are those updates. So I guess we have all questions covered, and we're also very finished in time. So hopefully that everybody welcomes that. Matt, I'm just passing on back to you.
Questions, that's great, Bianca and Susie as well in the chat box. Yes, it's been wonderful having you all here. I really hope that has been helpful for you and has been an introduction to BitPaper, has helped answer any of your questions about BitPaper. But as Bianca said, if you do have any other questions, feel free to email me or Bianca, and we'd be welcome to help you in that area. Are there any other final questions before we wrap up for today? I think we've covered them all. But if you've got any other final questions, Alexis has just asked, can this be accessed through Android or iOS? Yes, I believe so. Is that right? Bianca is nodding her head. Yes.
So iOS, I'm not sure. I'm a fan of Android and Windows. I know my tablet, I have a Samsung Galaxy 3A or 4A tablet. It works on it. The sizings sometimes might be different depending on what you're working with. So different tablets, if you collaborate with other people, so if you collaborate with your student and your student is on a tablet, you will see automatically. So let me just actually explain it very quickly. So if you see on that screen now of Matt, you will see the URL. If you give this URL to your student, if he joins, if he puts this URL into his computer, he will join automatically this board, and you will hear a little sound, and that means your student has joined. If he joins from a device that is a little bit smaller than your laptop, it is depending on certain sizes of the screen, you will see a little square that will come up, and that will indicate, it will come up as well with a little message on BitPaper where you see the student is only able to see this section of it. So just be aware of that. If you're working from a different Android device, that the actual size of the BitPaper screen might be a little bit smaller, but it works efficiently. The very old devices might not work as well, but I have a tablet that is not that new, and it works absolutely fine. Great, Matt. Back to you.
I hope that answered your question, Alexis. Okay. Great, Wendy said, I also had a look at your blog, Matt, which I found useful for getting an idea about using BitPaper. Fantastic. Thanks, Wendy. I'm glad that's been really useful. Yep, smartonlinetutoring.com for all things online tutoring, including BitPaper. But I think that's it from us. I can see we've reached the hour mark, so I want to draw the session to an end there. Thank you once again, everyone. If you just want to say goodbye in the chat box, feel free to do so. Bianca,
yes.
Famous Matt. Okay, bye, Wendy. Great to have you here. Thanks, Alexis, Marie, for all joining us. In the words of BitPaper, right on, and good luck with your online tutoring.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye, everyone. And
thank you. Goodbye.
Enjoy the rest.
Bye. Thanks, Matt.
Good evening. Okay.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.